If your colonies keep collapsing after an hour, then stop bouncing between random outdated tutorials. This is the definitive guide for 1.0. Beginner friendly, expert approved, covering all the things that actually matter. Hey everybody, Casual Dad here. And we have on the docket today a comprehensive list, not exhaustive, but comprehensive list of the things that you need to do to survive in Timberborn, whether you're playing on normal mode, hardcore mode with the Folktails or the Iron Teeth. Because I know a lot of you guys, you start off, whether you're a new player or you're returning after a long time, and after an hour or so, your population collapses, if it even lasts that long. So we're gonna go through, in general, how I set up and start my game, and we're gonna have a whole bunch of things. You'll know how many because it's gonna be listed down below. Things that will help you survive. Now, let's think about it. The first thing we need to do when we start, we need to pause. You don't have to do this, but you can name it. Here's your first settlement. All right. And I like to immediately up this to 4 workers because these workers, they act as a combination of builders and haulers. So having those guys there at medium priority is fine. And you just about always start with 8 adults and 4 children, unless you change the rules, but we're just going to assume that. And now we have to think, what do we want to do? All right, well, let's think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. All right, we need food, water, clothing, and shelter. Well, good thing with beavers, we don't need clothing, so let's work on the other ones. Fortunately for our little beavers, we don't really have to worry about shelter for a while. That means we can focus on food and water. Now, almost every map is going to have a nice little section of berries for you that you can get started. That's why I have the gatherer's flag set to high priority with a pretty high priority workplace so that we can get food going there. And then nearby, I do have a berry storage in case we need it. We can always recover those materials if we don't need it at some point in the future or change it to something else. Next up, we are going to need lots of lumberjacks. Now, I go ahead and put this in because the lumberjack flag doesn't cost anything to build. And we need to start getting wood because we only start with limited amounts of wood and building materials. And without wood, we can't do anything. And I know I've been there when I got started of chopping stuff down, building stuff, and then realize I don't have any wood, so I can't do anything. And so then my population just stays at like 15, all right? And then at the same time, next high priority is the water pump with a highest priority workplace. Obviously, if you don't have water, then you die. And now I always come in for a little bit lower priority, at least 1 small tank, because we don't know when we're going to get a drought. And if you don't have water, after a few days, your beavers die. Now, somewhere on the left-hand side of the screen, you're going to see some numbers pop up. For every beaver, they need roughly, I estimate, 3 units of water a day. That's really like 2.5, but to make the math simple, I just go with 3. All right, so if you got 12 beavers, you need 36 water a day to survive. Okay, so let's just stick with that. 3 units per beaver per day. So if you want to survive a 10-day drought, each beaver needs 30 units of water. You have 10 beavers, you only need 300 water. Make sense? Good. So that's how you do that bit of calculation. And that's what I like to start out with real quick. Then next up, what I like to do is 2 things. I like to go ahead and plan all these out so that I don't have to worry about, laying it in later and forgetting things. And I try my best to prioritize it in the order I want it built to preserve those logs and get the most important things done and then reserve those spots. So I come in with a farmhouse. And I like to come in with 1 to 2 different varieties. All right, so we got a little small section of potatoes and a bunch of carrots for the Folktails that are going to be different for different factions. And but it's basically all the same. You want your carrots and you want your potatoes. You want your first 2, not as much as your second one because it's almost always going to have some kind of processing. But you want to start to getting some diversification because they really don't like the berries. The berries are good for the Iron Teeth. They need them for breeding, which we'll get into maybe later. So you really just want to have the other food as soon as possible. The berries are just back up. Now, in addition, the next thing I do for my next priority is I come over, I find a spot. I want to save as much of this for planting and of trees and for food. So I'm coming over here where it's not irrigated, and I like to put down at least 2 inventors next to each other, and I will higher prioritize one, because without the science, we don't get anything. And so we're going to need real quick, we're going to need stairs, we're going to need levees, we're going to need floodgates, we're going to need all kinds of stuff, obviously, throughout the game. But we need that pretty quickly after we take care of our basic needs. Now, you may be thinking, why do I go ahead and have the lumber mill and the power wheel set up? Well, that's because we can't do anything really without the forester. This is going to be our first science unlock. And as you see, we need planks and logs, and it costs 30 science. Without this, we're just kind of stuck, because the wood, it unlocks everything. That's why I don't have any housing set up yet. And you can go a little bit of ways with no housing and it's going to be fine. Okay. So that's generally how I have it set up. And it's different maps. I may not need the power wheel. I may use the water wheel, but this map, I can't. Okay. And so I have to have the power wheel for now. Okay. And last little bit before I unpause is I always go to set my working hours to at least 18 hours. That's just in the beginning. And then, certain projects or whatever, if I have a deadline, I'll up it to 20 or 24 hours to try and get it complete. But I don't want to go over 18 for a long time, because then your well-being score starts dropping, and then you start dying off sooner. Speaking of the well-being, that's in the upper left-hand corner. You'll have the average well-being across your whole empire. So you can see right now, they've got their hunger, their thirst, and their sleep met, but they're missing shelter. So that's why they're at 0. And so you can go through here and you can see all the different ways to increase their well-being. Some of it increases it more than others. The monuments will increase it more than just by +1. And you unlock these obviously throughout the whole game. And why this is important, why I'm showing it to you now, is because 2 things. As you see here, to unlock the Iron Teeth, which I think is a superior faction, you have to have an average well-being of 15 while playing the Folktails. It doesn't have to stay there the whole time, but you've got to get up to 15. Okay, and then you unlock them. But also, you come with bonuses whenever you have certain things positive. So right now we don't have any bonuses, but here they are. You get increased worker speed, and it tells you when you get to 5 well-being, that's 20% more working speed. Movement speed, when you get to 2 well-being, you move 5% faster. When you get to 7 well-being, you live 20% longer. And these all go up to, I believe, a maximum of 100%. I haven't really looked at it because I just play, and I always have over 20. But it's a little level up process. And, as you're expanding, you start doing more things to increase the well-being. So that's what I do before I get started. So I'll just start this off, and we'll just put it on speed 2. You don't really want to go to speed 3 unless you're waiting for something, you know what you're doing, and you just don't want to sit around. Now, as this is for 1.0, all right, we're going to talk about some of those things that we see here. This is the Oasis map. And so first thing that is new for 1.0 is you have these water seepages. Now, these things are pretty cool because it just keeps the water at like 0.8, 0.85. And so you can't build pressure off of it. If it becomes a channel, you're not really going to get much power off of it. But it lets you do some pretty cheeky things once you unlock the science to stay away from the bad tide, which we'll show you that in a future point once we have the science. Now, you also means you can't sustain a whole bunch of pumps. I think the seepage can sustain 4 pumps. I'm not sure. I haven't completely tested that. I've tested 3, and it works for 3. And so it's really nice. It just keeps at a nice steady level, and it's really cool. The next immediate thing that I really like from 1.0 is these geothermal fields. Okay, you can go into your power, and you have this geothermal engine that you place over the top of it, and it creates 400 horsepower, doesn't use any other resources, and it's great. So that's really, really nice. Now, that is 160 science. You may want to get it early, you may not. Depends on your situation. Again, all this is just something not to blindly follow, I would say, except for the food, water, and logs, and then getting your lumber camp or sorry, your lumber mill going fast. Other than that, you literally die quickly. Or other things like this. You have an ancient aquifer drill. You can also make a new one once you unlock the science. And these are pretty cool because if you power them, they will act like, if you've played before or seen videos, the iron teeth have the little cap mechanism that you can cap off bad tides, but it allows you to pull out bad water even through droughts, which is really handy when you're making some kind of power system. Well, these aquifer drills, from what I can tell from the notes, I haven't built over here in my main playthrough yet to do it. It lets you pull water out even during droughts when you have it powered. Now, the bad side is this also is affected by bad tides. So you don't want to have like a bunch of stuff around an aquifer drill, ancient or otherwise. You have other things on the map like relics that you get science for, demolishing it, I guess, or investigating it. And there's a bunch of different ones around different maps. You have also aquifer sites throughout the map. And so really cool additions to the game. You'll have, if you've seen the release, some unstable cores that are like a giant dynamite, does like a 5x5 area. So that's pretty nifty. Let's go ahead and get this going. I want this a little bit faster. And so those are really cool new features to the game. Also, what you'll see is different bad water sources now are dormant, and they'll come on at different times. You have some different blockages and brambles and different things. But don't worry about those. Those are a little bit down the road. All right, I am on 3 speed now. That's because I just need them to get through this building queue. We need to get some water going pretty quick. We finally have our science turning and burning, and we'll get that going pretty fast. A lot of times in the early game, you may not like it, but you do have to do some micromanaging of your beavers. And so based on this size of a field, I can go down to 2 beavers if need be. But I don't want to right now. I will do that once we have this up and running over here. And really, now we're using so much logs in the beginning, there's no point in wasting money, or not money, but resources on storage for the logs. Or really any storage except for water. That's why I don't have anything high prioritized storage except for the water. And you'll see all your notifications over here. But we're going to come and we're going to talk about the food. Now, different food, can get made into, be multiplied into different things. So like 1 potato becomes like 2 cooked potatoes, I believe. A carrot is a carrot, a berry is a berry, and the different foods can kind of multiply. You'll have like chestnuts, maple pastries, bread, all this stuff. And they all help to keep your beavers alive. And so the way I work it out too, it's probably not exact, probably not the best, but in general, I try to make sure I have 1 food per beaver per day. All right, so if I have a drought that's going to last 10 days, I know about half of that, about 5 days I can get through before the water goes away and my plants die out. So I need to make sure I have however many days of the drought minus 5, times that number of beavers. Okay, again, math will be on the left-hand side. And that gets me through that. And I try to do that of each food type, but definitely of carrots. I mean, really, that's just a bare minimum. I just always try and stack more and more when I notice that our little indicators up top start dropping low. I'm just like, all right, well, let's get more. Let's get more storage, more farms or whatever. And so we're going to look at the farmhouse right here. So now it shows you the outline that it covers, which is a pretty good area. But I would not plant that whole area and expect your beavers to be any kind of efficient at bringing it in, especially if it's a single crop. Now, if you have it divided up to maybe you have like sunflowers and wheat that take longer, kind of farther away, and then you've got faster growing stuff closer, that's fine. But really what I like to do is I only like to have it filled up to about halfway. And then I like to have another farmhouse so that they can be working as efficient as possible. All right, we have 37 science. So we are going to unlock our forester. And since we already have, whoops, wrong button. since we already have our guys over here, we're just going to place that there. That needs power, which means we need to finish building that. But the problem is that sucker takes 20 logs. Okay, so we're going to just keep on rocking and rolling. We can open this up and we'll put these down a little bit lower. So if we need to move off. All right, so now we have one of beaver left as a kid. And it's about this time that I try to go ahead and start getting the housing. Okay, because the other beavers, they're all spawned in at different ages. I'm pretty sure we can go and look to see like how old they are. No, I don't want to name you. We'll see how old you are. So you're 19, and like if you really want to go through, like this one's 38. So like they're gonna start dying soon, and especially the more that they work past 16 hours and they don't have a house. So we're just gonna try and solve that. We're just gonna have something kind of ugly, gonna fit in against this side of the cliff. And we can always come back, demolish it, beautify it. The point is in the beginning, you just got to survive. All right, so each one of these small houses, these lodges, they holds 3 inhabitants. So 12 people, that means we need 4 of these suckers. So yeah, we'll put that there. And let's prioritize like this. It's going to make sure we have good sections. Now you may be thinking, why am I doing this with my path? It's because later we're going to put in some well-being things. We're going to be putting in some decorations that also increase well-being. And so I'm intentionally leaving some space for that. So we need some more logs here and we're going to get going. Now, while they're working on that, a big part of the game is bad tide diversion. You've got to think off your head real quick, especially if you want to do hardcore mode. How am I going to survive bad tide? Because if this thing becomes bad tide, everything here, plants, trees, everything's going to die, right? And if you don't have, it's almost as bad as a drought, or it's probably worse than a drought. And so if you don't have a solution for that, you're probably going to die, okay? And so you got to think about that from the get-go. You know, usually there's a water source that like runs in and runs through, and you can stop it up and reroute it, or you've at least got to dam it up for your droughts to keep as much good water as possible. But for this one, what we're gonna do something a little different. We don't have the science yet, but what I'm gonna tell you, we're gonna have our levees here, and then on the sides, and then we're not gonna do sluices yet because they are a lot of science and they take metal. But we're gonna get single floodgate. We're gonna put it here and here. I already told you this goes up to a certain level. So we're gonna do that, and then we're going to put a fluid dump on top like this, but obviously raised up. And we're gonna be dumping in water. So we're gonna have that completed hopefully before our first bad tide. And so because this only puts out to the level, a certain level around, it's kind of like the dam. So if you didn't know, the dam, it only stops up to about 60%, okay? And so this kind of acts as like the dam in reverse. It only puts up to a certain amount. So when you have it surrounded, then you can make sure you're pumping in water. And that means during a bad tide will not flow out. Hopefully, they don't change that. I'm not sure how they would based on like the mechanics and everything, but right now that works. So it's gonna be super helpful. All right, so we're getting all these pine trees. You know, pine trees are good if you need the pine resin, which comes later in the game, but they only give you 2 wood otherwise. So we really want to cut all these down and start getting a oak settlement going. I call it a settlement because there's just so many oaks that you just settle on over here and you just rip them out of the ground. So since we do have that building, we will go ahead and build our oaks. Now, I like to have almost all oaks right in the beginning because they take a long time. But I will also come in and I will temporarily put a few rows of birch and pine because they grow faster. Yes, they're not efficient with the wood, but they do grow fast. Okay, and so this one I actually will leave here and turn this into pine resin for a tapper shack. And then we'll have chestnut trees. See, make sure we can still reach that. Yeah, chestnut trees, because those will give us chestnuts. What a surprise. And then we're going to have just a few rows of maple trees for maple syrup later. Now, not too concerned about those. And we got to make sure our cutting field is in the right spot. So we're going to have all this cut. I am going to cut, like I said, the pine trees for now, because we're going to need those. And we're also going to cut the birch. The birch only gives you one, but they grow super fast. All right, cool. We have 3 of our 4 done. So now we're at we were at well being 4, but we're gonna have to work on that. This sucker can't get all the materials needed, so let's work on that. What is this lacking? It's lacking logs. All right, well, we might need to move this guy a little bit down so he can get to more trees faster. Now, I'm not too concerned about demolishing the lumberjack or the gatherer flags or anything like that, because they don't cost anything, and then all the materials are right there. Now, we have approximately 200 berry storage possible, so we'll just be turning this guy on and off. This is actually super crucial in hardcore mode, the micromanaging your beavers, so we don't need that right now. We're going to turn him off and get things going like so. All right, good. We got that. So everybody will be housed. Now, why you want the housing for the Folktails? The reason you want the housing is because if you don't have empty housing, you will not have baby beavers. That's just plain and simple. You've got to have empty housing for baby beavers to grow, and so we want growth. All right, now we're looking pretty good. We're gonna bump these guys up to a little bit higher priority, and we're gonna want our carrots at higher priority so we can start storing more of those. Let's just go ahead and give that highest priority. All right, we're looking pretty good. So we're gonna let this build out a little bit, and I'll come back with the next few things that you need to know. All right, as they're building, we're going to go back and talk about our power generation. As we said on 1.0, with these geothermals, you get 400 horsepower automatically. But what are some other ways? Well, you obviously have the power wheel, you have the water wheels, and you have windmills. The large windmills are great later, but you got to be able to make paper. And so that's going to come much later. And then you have gravity batteries, which are also really good, especially if you are on a higher map. This map doesn't look like it would be too particularly great for gravity batteries, except for maybe a few locations. But in general, this map is not going to be great for that. Now, also what is a pain is, as I've said already, the Folktail don't have a way to ensure that you always have bad water. That's what I prefer to use for my power generation. There's no difference. People have done that calculation before. There's no difference in power. So, I mean, you can use your aquifers, but your Aquifer drill is 400 size and takes 400 horsepower to begin with. So you're going to have to, at least have, geothermal and route your power to the Aquifer drill, or have, a bunch of these power wheels nearby or something to get it going so you can have a flow of water. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. You've got to stack up and figure out, okay, how am I going to get water? Most of the time, this is an odd map. It's a new map to help show off some of these mechanics. You're going to have a flowing stream, and that flowing stream is really nice because you can just plop in your water wheel. And the nice thing now is, if you see right below the water wheel, it says 0 horsepower. It now will tell you how much horsepower you will make. Let me see. There's none of them have been active yet. But you can, I want to show you live, but you can just hover and it will tell you how much horsepower that water will make in that location, which between you and I, that's pretty handy to know. All right, we've got half a day before drought. It's not gonna be too bad of a drought. This is on normal mode. So let's see, we've got 12 beavers, so that's gonna be 36 water, and we have enough for about 3 days. That's assuming once this is dry, so we're still gonna be able to pump for several days. So not too concerned. I just like to have that math so I know, like, okay, if it all dried up instantly, where am I going to go? But back to the power situation. You're going to want to make sure your power is thought about throughout the whole thing. So we're in the building stage. So we're going to have a bunch of these power wheels. We're going to have geothermal fields where you might have our industry, splintered off into different areas so that we can take advantage of those types of things. But one thing that we are going to want to do is figure out where we want it for long term. Now, on a map like this, when you have, some pretty good steps, what you might want to do is, fill in this with either your levees or your terrain blocks, probably levees, and flatten this whole area and then figure out, okay, well, I have bad tides that are going to come from here and probably fill up this channel and make a water source. Well, let me just see. Now let's just imagine that this is full of water and it's like, oh, 150 there, 150 there, 150. So then you just go through and lay down before your beavers even reach it of like, okay, that's going to give me so much power. And then how am I going to route it over to my station? All right. And you just got to be a little proactive, a little thinking about it. Okay. My favorite thing to do is actually to get some of these guys. Once you get some metal, you can unlock this nice little thing called the impermeable floor. And I like to then put it under pressure and raise it up, and so just think about this. So there's no loss of energy in the game right now. So it's pretty fun. This looks to be one of the highest places on the map. So imagine we're dropping probably like 6 or 7 tiles. So what if I went up like another 5? Like I'm say 12 tiles up. About every 4 tiles you can get a floor. So that's like 3 floors. So what if I had 3 floors of pressurized water where I can get like 1, 2, 3, 4, like let's just say it's 10 across, and I zigzag it, right? So you're gonna have, each one of these say does 150 on the low end. So you got 10 here, that's 1,500. Then another 10, that's 3,000. Then 4,500, then 6,000. That's just one level. And now you do that 3 more times, you have 18,000 horsepower that you then route to wherever you need it. That's why I like to put my bad waters under pressure. Now, again, Folktails is a little frustrating because you can't keep this going during a drought, but you can keep your aquifers if you already have a little bit of horsepower going in, which if you need be, it's a little cheesy. You can have some power wheels next to your aquifer. Okay. It would be very hard and confusing, but I've messed around with it. You can get power wheels to power the aquifer, and you can actually seal it up completely so it is under pressure, and now you can pressurize your water through a drought and do the same thing with the Folktails. But it's just a little complicated, and I don't have my levees unlocked yet to show you that. Otherwise I would. But the point being, you figure out some way to maximize the flow of water on your map, maximize the wind. Wind plus gravity batteries is real nice. I mean, just think about real life. Like if you're sleeping and the wind's blowing, what good does that do you? So you kind of need both so that when the wind's blowing and you're not using it, it fills up the gravity batteries. Gravity batteries are there to be used when you need it. Again, I'm so overly excited about these geothermal fields that are gonna be, that's 800 horsepower right there. That's like, if the average is like 200, because it's really hard to get 270, which they say is what you're supposed to get. Like 200, that is 4 of those power wheels, like right here, real close, without a whole lot of effort. So, point being, make sure you plan out your production. Just a little bit of planning. You don't have to have this big, gigantic wonder monstrosity of a thing, but you do need to plan it out a little bit. The next thing is storage. I've already have some storage here, and really to be even more efficient, I should have put the medium warehouse for the carrots right in front of the door. So it's just as they come back, it's just right there. These are pretty efficient. They're right across the door from the water. So as the water is being hauled, it can just go straight into the water tanks to keep those as efficient as possible. In general, you really do like to have, like if I needed to have, which I do, I need to have more log storage. Well, so then I don't really want my log storage over here. Like there's nothing using the logs. I either want my log storage to be right over here or over here next to, surprise, surprise, where I'm using my logs. And so doing something like this, and now there's mods obviously that can help with all these things, but I'm not talking about mods yet, okay? We're just talking about the basics, okay? So over here, I actually want to have my planks, and I want those to supply stuff, and I want this over here to supply. So what this happens is, as the lumberjack cuts down trees and he's full, it gets put into here. But as soon as something needs logs, it's going to be supplied out to wherever it needs. Now, later in the game, once you're past the beginning part, when you do have your, let's go back to this area, this is your industrial district, you will have like everything being made in one line, and then right across, it's like, okay, raw material for planks, planks go over here, planks make gears go into storage, and you just have everything nice and packed tight. You don't have to. It's not a killer like some games. Like if you don't have things set up pretty close, they are just like, oh, I don't know where this thing is. I can't do this, so I'm going to hate you, and then your whole city collapse. Fortunately, Timberborn doesn't do that. What you can do is have them spread out, but what that's going to be is this is going to make your build so slow. And I'm not even talking about doing wonders like the in-game monuments or just whatever, crazy build you come up with. It's such a pain. You want your storage close to where you're making it, close to where you're harvesting it, and then close to where you're using it. All right, so just keep those questions in mind, and you will do great for your storage. Now, you can go online, you can go on Reddit in different places, and you can find hundreds of different configurations of how to stack them and run your stairs and everything like that. There's going to be some new ones come out because they did finally add spiral staircases to the base game. So that's going to be a little bit different for a lot of people, but it's going to be good to be able to have more compact stairs. I also think they should add in the ladders. I usually use the ladder mod because I think that should be in the base game, but that's neither here nor there at this point. Next up, since we are talking about your logistics, is your pathing. When you look on your path, okay, you see green line, then it becomes yellow, and then red the farther out you go. And you can start looking on there, like whenever you click on a building, you can see how far it is to the city center. Okay. Now, in general, you want straight paths. So really, this should be a stairs that goes straight there, and this just kind of cuts around to come down here. It just depends on how min-maxing you want to get as to what you do. But if you're wondering, why the heck are they not, turning on this ancient Aquifer drill? It might be because the path they have to take is like halfway around the world to even get over here, instead of just like, well, let me just build some stairs and some platforms and stuff to get up to here straight away. I did like that a while back they took away there used to be a cap on the distance, and so then you had to, oh, that's why we're not building stuff. We need more builders. There used to be a cap on how far they go away, and then you had to build districts, which were a whole other logistics nightmare. I would rather them have a slow time getting there and getting back than have to deal with districts. That is just a pain. If you don't know what districts are, good. Don't worry about it. Okay. So once you get, you're pretty much settled, food is increasing, water is increasing. You've got some wood slowly but surely coming in. Well, we do need a forester. This guy, let's turn you off for now so we can get more people in. Do we need planks at the moment? We're not building any planks, so let's turn off the power wheel and the lumber mill. Again, in the early parts of the game, you will have to do this micromanaging to get your beavers off the ground, in a we'll say a timely fashion. Okay, you don't want them stuck and falling behind. I will turn this gatherer on so that he gets all these berries, and then we'll turn him off. Yeah, so we're looking pretty good. Now, I chose this map because of the new 1.0 features on this map, but it does make it a little harder to show some other features. So let's just imagine, okay, that we have water flowing through here, okay, and we have our settlement over here, and we need to capture as much as possible. Well, we're gonna want to see, okay, well, which way are we likely to grow as a colony? This is most maps. This map's a little different, so we're just using our imagination. All right, if we're going to be growing this way, well, looky here, we already have a blockage. There's no need to put any dams over here. That's a natural dam in the game. So now we can just come over here and see, okay, how far down is a likely source? Like, where are we going to be going to anytime soon? Because you also want to gather, there's like a little play between how much water do you store and dam up, and how far is too far. Plus resources in mind. So a little trick you can do. I don't particularly like it because it doesn't look good, and to me it's not in the spirit of the game. But if you're really hurting for resources, you can do something like this. Okay, water does not flow diagonally. Bad tide does not flow diagonally. So you can do anything diagonally, and it's going to seal this up. Okay, and so now you have dam this right here, and you will have this all filled with water. Now, maybe this water source is uphill from you, and it's traveling down a ways. Okay, we can actually use this bad tide as a good example. So let's say our settlement's down here, okay, and the water's coming, but we're like, okay, well, when we have a drought, we don't want to lose all that water, so what can we do? All right, well, this is where building your first reservoir comes in handy. And this is going to be handy when we're talking about our aquifers too. We can do a nice reservoir in here or over here. This one's going to be a little bit easier because we're going to be able to see it a little bit better. So we have this big open space, right? And our settlements down here where, well, we don't necessarily want to just flood them. And we may or may not have floodgates unlocked. We may or may not have sluices. Sluices are the best because you can put them at the bottom, and they can just set them to control outlet based on the downstream depth, which is really nice. But what we're going to want to do, let's go ahead and 3 times this because we've almost got the 120 science. I'm going to build out the reservoir. So we're going to think and plan, okay, like I want 1 CMS of water will last generally about 3-4 days in a drought if there's no more flowing. I'm always super conservative. They always last longer, but I'd rather be conservative than not. And that 1 CMS of water will give 1 beaver enough water to drink for like 3 days. All right, so that's roughly how it works out too. And so that's what I'm thinking when I'm thinking, how big do I make the reservoir? So we're going to unlock our levee. So imagine again, fresh water will flow down this when we're not in a drought, and our settlements down here. So we have a few different things we can do. So we can come in here and we can dam this up. Means we're going to have a lot of water here. We can move our water pumps up here. Okay. Now we don't have our floodgates, but we're going to just imagine we have some floodgates that we can do later. But this is going to be like pretty basic of a water reservoir. So we have something that looks kind of like this. you know, and so then we can just do some quick calculations later of how much do we have. And this actually is being turned on. I told you the dormant ones would start becoming not dormant, so we can see how it would work in real life. Now, we're going to want to do something like this. Now, ideally we would have sluice gates at the bottom, okay, so that it lets the water out. Or we may have triple floodgates, single floodgates, double floodgates, something at the top, okay? Regardless, this is your basic reservoir lineup. And so now what you can do is you can come in here and you can just calculate, okay, I have 1, 2 up here. And if you look at the bottom, you can see it says 14 by 1. So I have 14 that way. You can do this with pretty much anything that you lay out. So that's 14. That's not a whole lot. So we're just going to call this 14. We have at least 2 depth of 14. So that's 28, you know, just rough estimate. We're probably going to call this about probably 40 or 50 CMS total. So, I mean, that's enough for a lot of beavers for a long time. Especially if we come in here and we dynamite some of this dirt out. But now you may be thinking, well, that's all fine and dandy, but you know, until I have sluice gates and stuff, how do I get the water out? Well, that's fine because you can, here's a little secret tip. Again, don't like to do it too much because it seems like a little cheese. For 3 logs, you get an impromptu platform. And so you can actually just do this if you have to, and you can put a water pump on top. Okay. Not saying do it every time because it is cheesy, but if you're stuck in a rut and you need it, all right. Now I'm actually put this platform in a bad spot. I actually need to put the platform, or not the platform, sorry, the water pump. I need to put the water pumps right over here. This is where water pumps need to go first so that they go as deep as possible, and then along the sides. Now, this is just a quick thrown together reservoir, but I think it gets the point across. It's like, okay, you need a fairly large one. You need someone to get the water out or let it control flow out. But in the meantime, if there's any step downs, go ahead and put dams there. Build them up to whatever the highest the land is so it doesn't overflow. And then put your pumps, whatever they may be. Because you also need a reservoir for your bad water because you need your bad water to make dynamite and other things. So, you don't need a just reservoir for fresh water. Keep all those things in mind. Now, we're going to come over here and do a little levee action that I told you about. And we don't have enough for stairs quite yet, but we're going to add some stairs, and you're going to see what I'm talking about for the little, I think you can see. So basically, now it's going to stay like that. Okay. So hopefully that is making sense. Now, since we are talking about water, okay, we need to talk about shallow water versus deep water. So shallow water, 1 tile deep, is obviously not as good as more than 1 tile deep because of evaporation. Now, I'm going to show you a couple configurations, and this might be hard to understand at first, but we have 1 CMS, okay? Now we have 2 CMS. We also have 2 CMS. This water will last longer from the taller 2 CMS than the wider CMS because it is evaporation based on the surface area. So because we have 2 square meters shown to the atmosphere, it is going to evaporate twice as fast as that only has 1 shown. Okay, so when you have the chance, you want to go tall because it just slows down the evaporation. Sometimes that's ideal. Sometimes you can't have that. And so you just do what you got to do. Now, also, the most effective and optimal way of containing water to get the best irrigation is you're going to want a 3x3 set of water. Again, the higher it is, the longer it takes to dry out. But this 3x3 gives you the maximum radius. Okay. And so that's really good to know, because you're going to want to make sure that if you have an area like this that you want to turn into some kind of farm, if you're not going to pump water over there, have it under pressure, and you're going to have it carried over and use the fluid dump, you need a 3x3. And the taller, the better, because the more, the better, as I just explained. But it also helps you with your farm. If you're like, okay, once this dries out and I try to do fluid dumps, like, how far is that going to last? You know, or maybe you're making a reservoir like we just did, and you're like, okay, how far away will it go? Okay, well, now you can start playing around with that of like, okay, well, I know it usually comes out to like, I think it's like 10 tiles. So I know this will be like irrigated, but this won't be. So, you know, maybe I make a little offshoot and have a big open balloon looking thing so that more of this is irrigated. All kinds of different ways to play to make sure everything that needs to be irrigated will be irrigated. And so for all of this, this is helping you to understand the basics so that eventually, if you ever want to play hardcore mode, you will be able to survive a 30-day drought. Now remember, 1 food per beaver per day, 3 units of water per beaver per day. So for 30 days, that is 30 food and 90 water per beaver. Multiply that by however many people you have, and that's how much you need in storage. Again, it's going to take like 5 to 7 days for everything to dry up and die. But if you have that in storage, then you won't ever have to worry about losing any beavers ever again. This guy's pretty much done, so I'm going to just turn him off or delete him and turn this guy on. So we have a bunch of logs, so we're not using our power wheel over here. Now we do have our floodgate that we can turn on. And so there we go. Now we can't reach it, obviously. We could do the little, like if we had a bad tide, we could do the little cheesy thing with storage to like get out there, and that would be fine. But if at all possible, don't cheese the game. Okay, bad water source. This sucker is about to release, and then we'll see it flow down. Okay, so we've touched on it briefly, but your production chains, you really want to have your production chains thought out. Okay, so let's look at our lumber mill. Our lumber mill takes 1 log and makes 1 plank every 1.3 hours. So that means every 3 hours, it makes 4 planks. So in 16 hours, you've got 5 times 4, that's 20. You got about 21 planks made per day, you know, roughly thereabouts. Okay, that's good to know, because when you make gear workshop, 1 plank after 3 hours is turned into 1 gear. So assuming you have enough wood, you're going to have, after 3 hours, you're going to have 1 plank and 1 gear. Sorry, you're going to have 3 planks and 1 gear. Okay, so that's really good to know. And generally, I try to keep my ratios just to make sure I have everything I need on hand. I like to have 1 more lumber mill than I have gear workshop. And then also what you're going to need is for paper mill and your wood workshop. They all take planks also. I like to have 1 more lumber mill than I have paper mill, and 1 more than I have a wood workshop. So that means if I have 1 gear shop, 1 paper mill, and 1 wood shop, I want to have 6 lumber mills. I want 1 to feed each of them, and I want 1 more extra, just to make sure I have enough planks. Because maybe I have to do a project and I need another gear workshop, or it's using a bunch of planks. I want to be able to have capacity ready to go. That way I don't ever really run out. And I always like to try and keep an eye on my storage. And when my storage of something, like right now, my storage of berries is full. If I wanted more berries, I would immediately do something to rectify that. My storage of carrots is about to be full, so really I should do something to add more carrot storage. So that's just something that you're always keep in mind. Every so often look at your storage units and see, okay, we're full. Like our water is full. Great. I love it. Probably be fine on easy to not worry about any more, water and droughts. Well, just to make sure, I'm going to add some more. I just always want to make sure I have plenty of water, plenty of whatever. And now we have our stairs unlocked. Let's put those in right here. Again, I'm not trying to be the most efficient with this because this is more of just a little tutorial. So we're gonna make sure they can get all that, and let's prioritize it so that hopefully you can see what I mean by doing that way for these little water seeps. So now we're gonna get into some things that are a little bit more technical on the back end. Again, for our well-being, we need to start having more of these other things taken, increase. All right, well, we have broken teeth, so let me go ahead and fix that. So well-being, that is a teeth grindstone. You are over here, so we'll just put that right there. Okay, so we're going to copy settings. This is something that's really nice, is you can just copy settings, so you don't have to go through and click what it is, or I really should have just come in here and click duplicate. Then I can place another one. Everything's exactly the same. It's very nice. Instead of having to click over and over and over, and then go through there, hold tab, holding tab lets you see what your storages are. So like instead of having to hold tab and like click and change, it's just automatically done. So that's really nice. So let's go and talk about some of our more advanced production. So that is going to be, I'm saying that because I'm noticing we have lots of potatoes. So potatoes, they need the grill. And you can see here, potatoes plus 0.1 of a log after about half an hour gives you 4 potatoes. If you ask me, that's a dang good thing right there. I will take that all day. I don't necessarily want it over here. I'll keep it close to the food for now. So we'll have that, and then we will, to be efficient, we will put our warehouse here, and we will come in and we'll put, where's our grilled potatoes? Right here. We'll put in our grilled potatoes. So our recipe, grilled potatoes. We also have grilled chestnuts, and we have grilled spatterdock, and you can see the recipes right there, how long they take, how much it produces. Anything that you have to process is always going to produce more of that processed good than your raw good. So that's why you want to move off of whatever your starting food is, and pretty quickly. It's going to help your food storage immensely. And so once this grill gets made and the storage gets made, we'll empty this and not let any more potatoes come in here. We want those potatoes to go straight to the grill so that they can be grilled up. Now we're going to come and we're going to look at wheat. Wheat takes 10 days to grow, and it only gives you 3 wheat at the end. Okay, spatterdock, cattail, you can all see how long it takes these to grow and how much you get at the end. Now I say that because then what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to put that through a grist mill. Grist mill takes 60 horsepower, okay, and 1 wheat after half an hour gives you 1 wheat flour. You also put cattails through for cattail flour, works basically the same way. So now you have to think about, okay, well, 10 days at 16 hours, that means I can do 32 wheat a day for 10 days. That's 320 wheat. If it's 3 wheats per plant, then I basically need 117 plants to fully satisfy 1 grist mill. So that's a lot of wheat. That's a lot of wheat planted. So you're not going to need much of this. Okay, and then your bakery. You take 0.1 log, 1 wheat flour. After an hour, it gives you 5 bread. Okay, and so 1 to 1 here, and then you get 1 to 5. So basically, for every wheat you plant, you get 5 bread, which is really good, and the beavers really like it. So this is what I'm talking about when you're trying to talk about like your advanced production lines, not just for your food, but for everything else. Is go through and see how much does the initial thing create. Like for instance, okay, it takes 30 days for a single oak, but you get 8 logs from that oak. Okay, that's why we put out some pine, because it takes 12 days to get 2 logs. Again, not the greatest. 36 days gives you 6 logs. That's not nearly as good as the oak. And the birch, 7 days for 1 log. You're getting 4 logs in 30 days. Like, not as good. But in the beginning, when you need wood fast, those are great options to go with. Speaking of, let's come down here and finish out turning all this to oaks. And so then you just do your calculations. Okay, well, every 30 days, I have 40 oaks planted. Well, that, and in 30 days, that's 320 logs. Okay, well, we already did the math for this, so then we know, okay, how much can that be processed in each day? So on and so forth. That way you build up your chain. And again, you don't have to be super min-max, but just kind of know, all right, well, for about this number of whatever, I need this number of the next thing, so on and so forth. That way you don't hit these lulls, which I know I'm prone to do if you've seen any of my other videos, where it's just like I'm waiting for cycle after cycle after cycle because I have some bottleneck. Okay, we don't want that. So don't do that. We actually do have a bottleneck here. We need power wheel and lumber mill because we need our planks for this other floodgate. Probably could get away with 1 floodgate, but I'm gonna do 2 just to make sure. So that's gonna be the same thing. And we can do maple too. That's another really good food. So you'll see maple crackers. I wish I could like go and show you, move my mouse, but it's the bottom one. So 1 wheat plus 1 maple syrup after an hour and a half gives you 3 maple crackers. They really love that. It's really good. Grilled chestnuts is the same. Just look at them, take your time, figure it out. It's not hard. And so yeah, next thing is your health of your beavers. And I'm not talking about just having your medical beds. If you're not having people go through, like these guys are getting wet fur from being in the water. So I really like water heavy maps where I can force them to run through the water. That way I don't have to build as many showers. That gives them the wet fur bonus, which increases the well-being and happiness. You have rooftop terrace, which obviously you can put it on top of any roof. It provides well-being, campgrounds, fires, that helps them be happier. All these things give some kind of bonus. But the ones that are really important are the medical beds and the teeth grindstone, because as they are chopping down wood and doing different stuff, they chip off their teeth or they get hurt and they need healing. So let's go ahead and increase that. The medical bed is especially helpful when you get into your high production, high industry things. So you'll get a few injuries with gear workshops, but you really start getting injuries with your wood workshop. I'm not sure why there's a difference with your printing press, your paper mill, and then in your landscaping, when you're doing dirt excavation, these big guys, they produce a lot of injured beavers. Same thing for your explosive factories. Same thing for, does this map have, this map surely has mines. So yes, over here. So when you're doing metal, when you have your mine, this is super, super destructive to your beavers, causes a lot of problems. So in general, what I like to do is, as I'm getting close to this heavy industry, your smelter also generates a lot of injuries. What I like to do is I like to then start planning out my bot part factory and my bot assemblers, so that I can, have those guys, well, I guess they're bots. So those bots in those heavy jobs to not deter my growth of my colony, because I don't know about you guys, but I have everything set up. Finally, everything's going really good. I look down in the left-hand corner, or I see up here, out of 80 beavers, I have 23 injured. And that's a quarter of my workforce injured. And it's because I wasn't paying attention to the injuries happening in certain things. Now, there's obviously going to be growing pains. you're probably not going to have boss ready to go when you build the underground mine. So you just have to kind of limit what you're building at what time, how many workers you're willing to get hurt, and put in a bunch of medical beds. It's not great, but it's something. Another good one that they have is the herbalist. This is about the only good thing for the folktales that you have berries for. The herbalist, they create the antidotes, as it says, it cures contaminated beavers. So if you make a mistake, it happens to the best of us, and you get some contaminated beavers, maybe you had no choice, having some herbalists on hand will be helpful to keep them from dying, because contaminated beavers are another version of injured beavers, and they don't help you at all. So make sure you have some herbalists on hand if you think there's even a chance that somebody might get contaminated. You're definitely going to need this for large colonies where you can't keep track of everybody. Now, me personally, I really like the iron teeth. I've already explained why, because you can guarantee bad water. Bad water is more useful, I'd say, than fresh water. I know that sounds very counterintuitive, but because you need it for explosives, you need it for you put in your centrifuge and you can refine it. You just need it all the time for a lot of your building things, like your tunnels, and like you just need so much explosive, so much of your let me go in here and look at this. Your extract, you need it for a lot of things. So that's why I really like them, because they can just extract it nonstop. And then, of course, as I've said before, I put it through my power system to create power. I also really like in the iron teeth their movement. So this is not bad. These zip lines are pretty cool. I just finished up an episode or two where you're zip lining over the whole map. You got your little extension pylon so you can keep going farther. You've got the beam so you can like hang off the side of stuff. So like that's pretty cool. But I like the tube ways because as you're going along, so imagine it's just the same as this path. As you're going along, you can build around it in 3D. And so you don't even have to be able to like reach up over here. You have to build stairs. You just build your tube ways in this tube way station, and boom, you're here. The problem with the zip lines is I have to be able to get here to build that station, and then I can zip over. So I don't really like that. Okay. Also, the iron teeth, their power wheels, or sorry, not the power wheels, their water wheels, they're half as wide. They're 1 unit wide, and they produce, I think, like 50% more power on average. So that's really nice. They also have an engine that feeds logs to burn, and it gives you power. So if you don't have geothermal, you can use those engines. It's super nice. Oh, our well-being's going up, which means everything's going to get a lot better. The iron teeth are a little hard because the folktale, as long as you have open beds, they will keep producing babies. The iron teeth, you have to have water and berries in their breeding pods, and then they will produce babies, which means you could have a out of control population if you're not paying attention to it. But here is a little trick that I like to do for my iron teeth. Now, we're not playing iron teeth, but I can show you anyways. So what I like to do is I like to come into my iron teeth, and we're just going to put down, I'm just going to use the carrots. Okay. So let's just say we have a bunch of breeding pods right here. Okay. Well, what we can do is we can take our fluid dump. Oh, we actually have enough to unlock it. We can put this here, and then we can put a water pump right here. And so this fluid dump, this will be the lowest workplace priority in the whole thing. Okay. So what happens is if I don't have any beavers, water stops being dumped, it gets pumped out, evaporates, all of the pods turn on. But as soon as I have enough beavers, this guy is going to be filled up with a job. He's going to flood it. They're going to automatically turn off. So it's just a nice little automation way of keeping your population under control as the iron teeth. That's about the hardest thing, is keeping your population under control as your iron teeth. Now, there's more advanced things that we could get into, you know, mods and stuff that automate things. You know, once you get those bots unlocked, you can start, you know, after the injury prone jobs are taken care of, you can start, you know, moving them down to take every job you want. And so maybe 50% of your workforce is bots. Who knows? Then at that point, really the world, or at least the map's your oyster. You can start doing your mega projects you've dreamed up, or maybe finally take time to dream up mega projects. You can do mega terraforming projects. Like, there's just so much you can do once you get to this point that I've been telling you about. You know, you can start doing multi-story colonies. You know, you start using these overhangs and platforms, bridges, and just, you know, look up some YouTube videos. There's some really cool builds out there. But we're trying to get to a point where we have all the materials, we have all the production, all the food. We don't have to worry about bad tides. We have all the water, so we can start dreaming and doing big things. One thing that you should do is, we kind of touched on this earlier, is when you do have your industrial, you do need to think about, how are you routing your power lines? Are they going to be underneath? Are they going to be overhead, like behind? What are you going to do? One thing that I really like to do, I don't have enough science to show you, but let's just say, you know, I have my stuff set up right here, and we're going to just assume I have this going right here. Well, if I need to cross that power line, what is really, really nice to do is I'll put one here, here, and here. Okay. Yes, I know I don't have enough science points, but when that unlocks, what you then do is you don't do this. You get your power, you get your vertical power shaft, you put that on either side. So now you can put something on top of that. And I'll show you that in just a second. And you put your regular power shaft underneath with a platform over the top. So now if I put platform here and I put platforms there, you'll be able to see that. Come on, turn around. And see, now what's really nice is when you click on something that has power, it will all light up to see what's all connected. So you can tell now it's connected, and you have your path going in between. And it just kind of hides it and helps you bridge stuff. So just think about, how are you going to have things connected? Or do you have a tunnel that you're forcing water or bad tide through to produce pressure? Run it. So far, they haven't done it where it affects your power lines. Run that through. That's all super helpful. Then, of course, at the very end, you're going to have some kind of monument, some mega monument that kind of is like, you know, it's different for each, each faction. And it's like this super mega monument that it takes forever to build and affects like most of the map, if not all the map. And basically you're done once you build that. There's other ones you can do that are really nice, give some really good bonuses and buffs, you know, depending on what's inside your area. Same thing for all these decorations. Anytime you have this little area of effect, it's going to make your beavers happy to have these things inside the area of effect. So you want to do things like, you know, you can be cheesy, and you can have like a little, you know, roof here, and then you can put things on the rest of the part of the roof to help out your happiness. But just so you know, when you do the bigger ones, like, I mean, that just covers such a big area and provides quite a lot. And I do like to, this will be the final note on the well-being, is I do like to try to have most of my well-being things. I say things, it could be anything. It could be your herbalist, your Lido, Agora. It could be your roof. It could be, what is the other things? Lanterns, shrubs, hammocks. I like to have as much of this stuff near my house as possible. And I like to have my houses be the first thing that I go vertical with, because they're going to spend, you know, later on, they're going to spend 8 hours of a day underneath this, getting all this happiness bonus while they sleep. And then usually it lasts until almost the whole working day. So you get a lot of bonus throughout the day. And then another thing I like to do is, in major thoroughfares, like basically anywhere leading out of their homes to major work areas. I like to put down, some platforms, and I'll put stuff on top of that because as they're running back and forth through that, they're getting more bonuses throughout the day. Now, I don't go overboard because then it would look really weird of like, why do you have this little clump of stuff here? Like, I at least try sometimes to make it somewhat realistic. I mean, I know it's beavers, it's a beaver building game, but to each their own. But that's about it for my rundown of how I get started and get going to see. Look, we have so much materials and everything ready. Like, those platforms are already built. I don't even actually want them to be built. But we're just, and grilled potatoes are just absolutely off the charts. So we are in a good spot, really ready to expand. We have a bunch of science. We're just, we could probably, we get the geothermal engine for 160 science. Like, we're cooking with peanut oil now, folks. Up to 7. Let's look at this. Okay, 7 well-being. Let's just to give you an idea. 7 well-being, 20% working faster, 5% faster movement speed, and 20% life expectancy. So that means, they're going to work harder, work faster, and live longer. And so that just is positive direction for your colony. Now, I know we've gone over a lot, so make sure you take your time, go back through, take some notes, pause, rewatch, share with a friend, do all you got to do so that you guys can stop losing within, it's not really losing because you don't really lose at the game, but stop having problems a lot of people have of just using up all your wood or dying to drought or something, within the first hour of the game, because it doesn't help to have a nice little setup in the beginning and then you feel like, oh man, I forgot the water, or I forgot enough food, or I forgot the storage. And now here comes the water, or oh, I forgot the bad tide diversion and now everybody's sick and dying. Like, okay, so take care of that. Make sure you go through it. Use as a checklist, not necessarily a build order that you have to do it this way every time. Now, I would keep in mind Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You need the water first, you need the food first, and you need the wood. After that, just play around, see what feels good to you about whether you get the farmhouse or you get water storage or whatever it is. All right. But I would suggest you get the food, the berries, the water, the wood, and the lumber mill as soon as possible, followed quickly by the inventor. After that, the rest is up to you guys. I've given you all you need to know to let your imagination run wild. Go check out some other videos, even though they're going to be prior to 1.0, to see how people build big projects and plan things out. And you can always drop me a comment. I am an engineer by trade, so I can help you out, help you plan some things out. If you found this video helpful, make sure you leave a like and let me know some things that you found useful down below, and hit that subscribe button. We're going to be posting all kinds of content about Timberborn and other strategy and SimCity, city builder type of games. And guys, I appreciate you. I love you. This has been your Casual Dad, and this has been a Timberborn guide, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.